This right here is going to be yet another Star Trek themed video. Let me adjust the camera for a bit. One thing I never liked about Star Trek, the one thing that has always annoyed me, was how formal the uniforms were. I would be watching Star Trek and notice that the uniforms just don't look right. To me, if they're going to go on an assignment, like going down to a different planet, you'd think they would have, like, commando uniforms and what have you. But no, it seems like they go down there wearing such fancy jumpsuits that it's unreal. That, to me, is the most annoying thing to deal with. If they're going to go down to a planet's surface, you'd think they would be wearing some form of survival gear. Or if it was an unknown planet they'd recently discovered, you'd think they'd be wearing like a spacesuit. But that's the problem. They're not doing that. Or let alone they've never done that. Now, Enterprise, the original, not the original series, mind you, but I'm talking about the prequel series of Enterprise, they actually did something good in that. The uniforms, although they were a little fancy, at least they were a little more realistic. Instead of being fancy formal outfits like you'd normally see on the shows, in Enterprise, they did something right by making the uniforms jumpsuits. That way, it was a little more militaristic and a little more serious in regards to how they were dressed on the show. Now, I understand that the formalities is based on Roddenberry's time as a police officer, but don't you think the writers could have made it a little more militaristic instead of the fancy get-up that we see every week on Star Trek? Or let alone in the movies? Well, if you ask me, if I did Star Trek, if I were a Star Trek writer, I would have changed the entire uniform scheme. I would have made their uniforms a little more realistic. Now, there is one episode of the original series that I do applaud, where Spock and two other guys were on this planet, and they were wearing what you could say survival suits or space suits. I don't know the exact episode off the top of my head or anything like that, but I do know that there was an episode. I believe it was the one episode where the crew just loses their ambitions and just goes crazy. Yeah, it was the Naked Time from the original series. And then they had the sequel called The Naked Now, which was on Next Generation, which was basically kind of like a sequel. But there were some episodes, other episodes that were very, very unrealistic in their uniforms, was the entire run of Next Generation. They looked way too formal. Too fancy and too formal. Now, I do applaud Deep Space Nine for trying to make the uniforms look a little more realistic and Voyager, but I am going to have to shoot down that one thing about Star Trek being their uniforms. If you ask me, their uniforms are way too formal. So, how does everyone feel about the Star Trek uniforms? You can send me a private message or comment in the video below, comment section below. Whatever you want to do or say, I'm all open to suggestion. Thank you.